Hi. Are we ready to go? Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Essential Living with Pilar. For those who have never joined us before, Essential Living is a show about all things holistic, all things of how to create the life we want to live, in the world we want to be a part of, in the world we want to contribute to, what we want to contribute to it, how to be healthier, happier, wealthier in every way, how to create a life that is not only sustainable but beneficial to ourselves and to the world around us. Anyway, so welcome. And we talk about a variety of different things. Today, being that we're sort of halfway through the year, not sort of, we are halfway through the year, and we all, excuse me, have intentions that we have set out to accomplish from the beginning of the year, as we do every year, but then we don't do so well with that. So I wanted to talk about the law of attraction, that concept, that it is actually a law of life. So, okay, I think I'm good now. Years ago, there was a movie called The Secret that if you haven't had a chance to experience it, you can look it up. You can download. I don't know if you can download it, but you can. It's accessible. You can watch it. Basically, it is. It was a movie or sort of a documentary type of production that explained how to achieve what we want and what it takes to do so. And after the movie, what happened was a lot of people tried the concepts that were proposed, and then some people felt really good about their results, and then some people said, "Well, no, doesn't work. It doesn't work for me." So I wanted to demystify the secret to the law of attraction a little bit in really kind of simpler layman's terms, because the one thing that we want to understand is that we are creative, we're creators by nature. We can't help it. We just are. We just don't know we are because we forgot. We have strayed so far from our true nature that we totally forgot. That's what is called the veil of Maya, the veil of illusion, that over time of realistically misusing the law of attraction or using it in a way that became detrimental to us, little by little we lost that clarity. So the law of attraction is a law because it's immutable. You can't change it. It's a principle of life. Whether you like it or not, think it's working or not, or even believe in it, it just is. So I'm going to explain a little bit of what that means. I'm going to backtrack a little bit into some concepts that we have discussed before. Mainly is that we are vibrational beings more than anything else. We're very attached to this physical body that we live in and this physical world that we dwell in. But really, if you were to just really understand who we are as beings, there is more energy to us than there is matter. Matter is the very last, maybe 0.999999999 part of us that is very minuscule compared to the vibrational magnitude that we truly are by nature. So what does that mean? That we are vibrational beings. So if you understand what that means, if you follow or tune into a certain wavelength, a certain frequency of vibration, then you are connected to that frequency, and like attracts like. That is the basic premise of the law of attraction. Like brings it's like onto itself. So how do we do this? How is this always happening? Like I said before, well, we're constantly creating. It's just something that happens, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. We create with our attention, what we focus on, because that is what we tune into. That is what collapses energy into matter. A scientist will prove that to you if you want to challenge that idea, because scientists have for many, 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 many years now known and have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that the observer of an experiment alters the result of an experiment by merely observing it. Changes the whole end result. So our focus is what collapses into reality, whatever it is we're focusing on. So we're always giving our attention to something. We're always thinking. So we're always generating thoughts, which are creative. The thought is like the cookie cutter onto the dough, for example. And then the feelings that we attach or assign to that thought that we're thinking is what brings it into our reality more and more and more and more and more. The more momentum and consistency you have with a thought and a feeling, the more that is heading your way. So if you can think of it, another analogy that I suppose I can use is a fishing line, right? You cast your fishing line onto something, or let's say a hook, or let's call it something else. Let's call it, you put out a rope with a hook, like for people that are outdoorsy and, rock climbing or whatever. You hang on to that, and then you bring yourself toward whatever you're hooked onto, and there you are, right in your face, right at your tangible touch and connection. So when you focus your attention on something, immediately it's like latching onto the object of your focus, and immediately, literally immediately, that starts to come to you. You start to magnetize it toward you. So the thoughts broadcast the signal, and the feelings bring it to you. So it's really, there's no pause to this. So if you can stretch your imagination to see how if you focus on something, you're connected to it, and right away it becomes part of you and it starts to build, right? So if you focus on something that you like, great. If you focus on something that you don't like, you're going to get it. So I think that is where this connection came with the secret and the law of attraction, because we may spend some time deciding, okay, so I'm going to sit and focus on what I want. My imagination is going to go to work. I'm going to create this beautiful ideal, this beautiful scenery, whatever the situation is, in great detail. The more detail, the better, right? You want to put all the details, all the components that you want in there. And then as you give it momentum, the more you think about it, the more you get connected to it with your feelings, because it'll make you feel good that you're going to be experiencing this, even if it's in your imagination still. It takes a while for it to come to you, but the more that you focus on something, the more it becomes part of your life. The disconnect, as I was saying before, is that we lose that attention. So when we lose that attention from what we are thinking of, that we're fantasizing about or we want, then there's a million other things that are not so pleasant that pull our attention away from it. But yet we're still focusing on that whenever we switch from one thing to the other. So then all of a sudden we drop this, and then we're pulling this into us. So the point is that no matter what you're focusing on, that's what's coming. So some people went and tried that, a couple of times a day or here and there, I'm going to think about what I want. For really, by ratio, a very small amount of time and energy goes into what we want. And then without realizing it, subconsciously or unconsciously, we turn our attention to the 10,000 million other things that irritate us, that pull our attention away from the object of our desire into everything else that we don't desire. So, does the law of attraction work? Yes. Does it always work? Yes. Is it 100% reliable? Yes. Are we 100% reliable using it? No. So that is the secret of it. What you focus on comes to you or becomes part of you. Unfortunately, we're so undisciplined with our minds that we're all over the place. If you think about it, our minds go fleeting from one place to the other all day long. If we're in traffic, we're over here, the car is over here, we're looking at the thing over there, we're thinking about what happened yesterday, what may be happening in an hour, what could happen tomorrow. So we're ricocheting off the walls vibrationally all over the place. So it's like we don't maintain that clear and centered focus that is really what's required if we want to accomplish something. So it's literally the crux of it. How can you sustain your attention as much as possible while still functioning in your life, but still staying focused on the goal of your desire? So another analogy is a road trip. If you're going from, LA to Seattle, you have an itinerary. You know you have to go through this to get there. In the meantime, as you go on the road from point A to point B, you may stop here and there, but you're still going. The end result is still your goal, and you're still heading in that direction, hopefully not straying too far unless you really want to, but you're still focusing on your end result, and you know you're going to get there because you know the map, you know the directions, you know which way you have to go, and you have to stay on track. You give yourself a time limit. When do you want to be there by? So you try to stick to that schedule as much as possible, and eventually, you get there more or less by the time you plan to get there. We don't do these. We don't make these plans so specific when it comes to a mental trip, an emotional trip, and by the way, they go together, because a thought alone without an emotion doesn't have a lot of charge. But a thought that has an emotion is very powerful. The trick is too, if we focus on something that we want and we feed it with our aligned our thoughts, our emotions consistently, how we speak about it, and what we do about it, then chances are we're going to get it. However, oftentimes we stray into, we want this, but then we think of the million other reasons why we think it can't happen or it won't happen, or what could get in the way, or what could stop it, what could go wrong. So, gone. You're off going in circles, your trip is delayed, you're not going to get there by the time you want it. Because you're all over the place trying to say, well, maybe we go over here, we go over here. You know what I mean? You have to just kind of stay on that track while still functioning in your life, but you have to have that observer awareness of yourself. If you want to use another analogy or metaphor, is think about your computer screensaver that is always in the background, or maybe music that you play in the background. Whatever you're doing, you always have that going on. It's sort of like a focusing thing. It's something that keeps you going, that keeps you on task. So if you can maybe find a way to hold that vision of whatever it is you're trying to create, be it big or small or whatever, but just kind of hold that vision as something that is coming, as long as you focus on it, because that's when you have that hook, that vibrational hook, bringing it back to you. It's like sort of like a conveyor belt, if you can think of that, because as we put that energy out, it's immediately coming back. So it's almost like a simultaneous movement. We just don't stay focused or aware of it long enough for it to eventually manifest. So we may be getting close and then we pull away because of our lack of attention, and then we get back a little bit and then we go. So what could take a relatively small amount of time often takes years or even a lifetime or lifetimes because of that lack of clear centered focus. So that's kind of where the linchpin is with the law of attraction, is, are your thoughts consistent? Is the picture clear? Are the details clear? Are you excited about it? Do you love the idea of it enough to think about it more often than what you think about what you don't like? Because it should be easier to think about the things you want versus the things that we don't want. But somehow we're very undisciplined with our thinking, and that's kind of the most difficult thing to master, is your mind and your emotions. But it can be done as long as you focus and you have that perseverance and that willingness to stay on target to get what you want. And you may be used to doing it on smaller scales, but something that may be a bigger thing that, and it doesn't matter. It works for everything. It's just our belief of whether it has to be something small or big, that it'll work easier when it's something smaller versus when there's something big. But there is no difference. The universe doesn't care. A button and a castle are the same thing, as it's been said before. So yes, your feelings are important, because looking forward to it adds an immense amount of momentum to it. Thinking about what could go wrong sets you back a whole day of travel, if you will. So I want you to think about yourself and what your habits are. So if you have a piece of paper and pencil handy, here's a little homework that I'm going to give you. Give yourself a challenge and do a little personal inventory. So what are you focusing on most of the time? Go through your day, your whole one full day. What do you focus on the most? Make a list, positive or negative. Make 2 lists. What did you spend the most amount of your time thinking about on any given day? What feelings do you attach to those thoughts? Are you focused? Is there a significant ratio, or are you all over the place? What are your dominant thoughts? Are they positive or negative? Are thoughts of well-being, of abundance, of happy, of accomplishment? Or are they whining? Oh, this is bad. The weather's bad. Politics. The world's going crazy. Where is your mindset? Where's your attention going? Where are you investing your energy? Make a list of those things, because we're very habitual creatures. We're just really swamped by a lot of bad habits. And those bad habits are not necessarily what we have outwardly, but what is in here. Because thoughts are random by themselves. They don't do anything. But once we start attaching an emotion to it, the emotion is the powerhouse. The emotion is the gas in the gas in the gas tank. So think about that for a minute. Do some self-assessment, and especially if you had one particular goal that you were really adamant about accomplishing this year, at the beginning of the year, where's that at the moment? How far along have you gotten? And going by that list, have you been focusing on it even at all? Or is it just on the back burner that you occasionally think that, oh, well, you'll get to it? And my suggestion is to get yourself on you feed yourself on a schedule. You make sure you eat X amount of times a day. If you work out, you go to the gym, you're very disciplined about that, because, that's a tangible thing that you can immediately kind of feel like you're getting results. Or whatever your habits are, your mind and emotions are also habits. So that's where it all comes from, because those thoughts and emotions are what create the frequency of vibration to which you are calibrated, and that either matches or doesn't match what it is that you want to accomplish. And that would be a good thing to regroup right now halfway through the year, because you still have the other half of the year to catch up. And you would be surprised how quickly you can catch up or see some different results and different shifts if you have this focus and you really are mindful of yourself and observe yourself and see where the gaps are. And it is going to be hard at first, but if you think about it, you do get what you focus on, because you probably focus on the same things all the time. You just don't realize, just because you're not purposely focusing on it doesn't mean that you're not giving it your attention. For example, if you get home on a regular basis and plop on a couch and put on the TV and start watching things that make you feel bad, then that's a habit. That's a counterproductive habit. So we may have a lot of intentions, but if we don't follow up with some alignment that is coherent with those intentions, like, are you doing something? You can't think of an imaginary thing that you want to create and then say, okay, great, I thought about it. And this is what a lot of people did in The Secret back then, is like, well, I'll just have to think about it and do nothing. So no, you don't just have this great fantasy and then go make a sandwich. You have this idea of what you want, and then you have to kind of align, well, what can I do? And by focusing on it and by just sitting there with that imagery and that reverie, really, if you will, you'd be surprised how much your consciousness opens up to ideas and intuitions and epiphanies, or to serendipity. You open up to serendipity of things just synergizing and happening by what's called a coincidence, but there is no such thing. You just open the gates of synchronicity to start aligning, and some components will start falling into place and bringing your idea into material reality. So I'll give you that task, because it's a good time to regroup. Midway through the year, are your goals just fizzled away, or are they tucked in somewhere at the back of a notebook while you don't really dedicate your time and energy to it? So invest yourself in your plans, and is where your attention is, there you are. So you better be putting your attention into the goals you want to manifest, because that's what's going to get them going. And the more excited you get about it, the more gas in the tank for you to get there faster. So I task you with that homework and that assignment, and make sure that now, this beginning of the month, you start working on that and see if you get some momentum and start seeing some significant results. And don't give up if it doesn't all just come at once. You're just going to start seeing that incremental momentum, and you'll start seeing more steps as the fog clears as to how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm not telling you anything that I'm not telling myself, because that's usually kind of how I share that with you during this program, because whatever I may need to work on, it's nicer to share it, because then it gives me more momentum to know that I'm not just the one doing it by myself. And even though we may not know each other or be connected personally, we are in that same wavelength. So that does add some power, gives it some gas in the pedal, and propels you forward toward those ideals faster, especially if you're sharing it. So there you are. Give me some comments if you have any, or any questions, by emailing me at essentiallivingwithpilar@gmail.com. Also, if you want to tune into Facebook or YouTube channel, Essential Living with Pilar, there's always some little bits of wisdom that might help you along the way that you might find useful. So I hope that you take it upon yourself to check in to see, what am I doing? What am I missing? What could I be focusing on differently? And know that it does work. It cannot help but work. It's always working. You just have to be aware and focus on it and do it with intention, because it's unavoidable. We're always creating. And as Abraham Hicks say, if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks, and if you're not, check him out. Check Esther Hicks out. It's always yes. The universe always says yes. So you may say, oh, I don't like it. Yes, it's coming to you. Yeah, I like it. Yes, it's coming to you. It's what you focus on. Where your attention is, there you are. So pay attention. And I'll see you next time. And real quick before we go, thank you to Thurston County Media for making this possible. This is a great place and a great family, and thank you all. And I love you, and I see you next time. I'll see you next time, and I hope that you find this useful.